Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to continue from the reading where we left from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Mysteries of Creation. And we'll continue from the chapter 10, the 10 subjects of Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadev explains the 10 subjects matters found in Srimad Bhagavatam. He also further describes the Lord's Virat Roop form. After this, Parikshit asks the remainder of his questions that began in chapter 8. Silvery moonbeams shimmered on the rippling river as it flowed by the great gatherings of sages seated around Shukadev and Parikshit. The water lapped gently against the riverbank. Shadowy forms of deer could be seen quenching their thirst. Wild dogs howled in the distance, stars twinkled brightly in the clear night sky, and the effulgence of the waxing moon illuminated the faces of Parikshit and the sages. When Shukadev concluded his narration, a murmur of appreciation rose from the audience. Even the speculative philosophers were impressed by his authoritative answers. Shukadev said, "My dear king, what more do you wish to know?" Parikshit sat in spellbound silence for a few moments. He had never before heard such comprehensive and clear explanations. Because of his devotional inclination, he wanted to utilize this opportunity to clearly understand the full significance of Krishna's creation. Thinking back to the earlier inconclusive conversation amongst the sages, he said, "Wise one, there are diverse opinions about the material creation, spiritual reality, and living beings entangled in matter, and the ultimate destination of the soul. I would like you to give a definitive understanding of these matters." Shukadev's expressions became grave. Briefly glancing at those sages who were inclined to speculate about the Absolute, he said to Parikshit, "Proper knowledge must be received from the right source. Brahma is the supreme authority in this universe. He showed by his own example that we should act according to the principles set by the Supreme Lord." Placing his palms together in a gesture of respect, Shukadev indicated Narad. Narad is the dearest of Brahma's son. He greatly pleased his father by his inquiries about the Supreme Lord, the master of all energies. Because Narad is virtuous, meek, obedient, and self-controlled, Brahma instructed him in the same Srimad Bhagavatam which he had previously heard directly from the Lord. Shukadev explained that the Srimad Bhagavatam is a supplement to the other literatures and it contains 10 subject matters. Although counted as one of the Purans, Srimad Bhagavatam is limitless in its scope and power. Shukadev respectfully indicated his father, sage Vyasadeva. After hearing it from Brahma, Narad later instructed it to his disciple, the unlimitedly powerful sage Vyasadeva. On Narad's order, Vyasadeva sat on the bank of the river Saraswati and meditated on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He thus factually realized all these truths which he later taught me. O King, I shall answer your questions by the explanations given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Parikshit's eyes shone with curiosity. What were the 10 subjects of Bhagavatam? Shukadev said, the 10 principal subjects of Srimad Bhagavatam are as follows. Sarga, the primary creation by the Lord, which elements the senses, false ego, Mahatat. Visarga, the sub-creation by Brahma. and the progenitors when the different species are created. Sthanam, the Lord's infallible protection and maintenance of the cosmos, especially in the form of his instructions to the living entities, which enable them to remain peaceful and happy. Poshanam, Krishna's mercy shown to his devotees who engage in devotional practices. Uti, conditional souls are motivated by desires to enjoy the results of their work. These desires are called Uti, and they arise from the impressions stored in the living beings, some subconscious memory from previous lives. Manvantra, narrations about the Manu. So this is number 6. The kings who father mankind in different periods of Brahma's day and who relay the Lord's laws to the mankind. 7th is Isha Anukatha, descriptions of Krishna's incarnations, pastimes and devotees. So it is Ish Anukatha. Nirodha, the meaning of the conditioned living beings back into the body of Mahavishnu at the time of universal devastation. 9th is Mukti, the living being's attainment of his pure spiritual identity as the Lord's eternal associate. This can be attained even while still within the material body. And lastly, the 10th subject is Ashray, the ultimate refuge of everything, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So the 10 subjects are of Srimad Bhagavatam are Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Uti, Manvantra, Isha Anukatha, Nirodha, Mukti and Ashray. Parikshit looked mystified. He could not remember Narayan speaking of all these topics to Brahma. Seeing his confusion, Shukadev explained that the instructions Brahma heard from Narayan and later taught his son were further elucidated by great devotees such as Vidur and Maitreya. Parikshit was still doubtful. Both Narayan and Brahma described the Supreme Lord's glories. Why did devotees like Vidur and Maitreya include other subjects? Shukadev explained that Vidur and Maitreya knew that these other topics, which are mentioned in the Vedas, often create misunderstandings regarding life's ultimate goal. Thus, those great sages wanted to clearly distinguish them from that goal, which is to attain Krishna's personal association. He is the 10th subject, the supreme shelter or the ashray, while the other 9 subjects described are the sheltered or ashrit. Turning to the followers of atheistic Sankhya, empiricists like Vaisheshikas and logicians like Nyayas, Shukadev said, that which you call the Supreme Brahman is actually Krishna. Then addressing the followers of Patanjali, he added, he whom you call Paramatma or Super Soul is also Krishna. Tears flooded the king's eyes. Shukadev's comprehension of Brahma's teachings was profoundly inspiring. Parikshit again became thoughtful. He knew Brahma did not take birth from a material source. Having come directly from the Lord, Brahma had also personally met Narayan. Wondering about this, the king asked, if Krishna is the only ashray, then what is the position of Brahma, who is the source of all material bodies? Shukadev explained that the controlling deities like Vishnu, Brahma and Shiva are manifestations of Krishna's Paramatma feature. He puts living beings in either the position of Adidev, a godly controller of the universe like Brahma, or in the position of a controlled being as Adhyatma. What distinguishes the controlled living being and the controlling God is simply their bodies, or Adhibhut, Adidev, Adhyatma and Adhibhut are all interdependent. One cannot function without the other two. However, all of them depend on the Super Soul who has no other shelter. Parikshit knew that if Gautam detected any logical inconsistency in Shukadev's teachings, he would reject them. Thus he asked, Most Holy One, you said that Krishna never touches the material energy. Then again you tell us that he enters the universe. Since the cosmos is material, how does the Lord remain aloof from the matter? Shukadev replied, the first Purusha, Mahavishnu, lies outside of the material universes on the causal ocean, which is spiritual. When the universe emanates from his body, he enters each of them and manifests the pure spiritual waters of the Garbhodak Vishnu, sometimes referred to as Nara, on which he lies down in mystic slumber. Why is the Garbhodak ocean called Nara? Because it emanates from Narayan's body. Garbhodakshai's Vishnu is also called Narayan because he lies on these transcendental body waters. So another name for Garbhodakshai Vishnu is also Narayan. Looking towards the followers of the atheistic Kapila, Shukadev said gravely, know for certain that if it were not for the presence of the transcendent Lord, creation could not occur. Matter, karmic, destiny, time, and the living beings, inherited natures, cannot act by themselves. Turning back to Parikshit, Shukadev asked if there was anything else he wished to know. Parikshit said, since Vishnu is always transcendental, how do the different material planets along with their respective rulers manifest as the limbs of the Lord's gigantic universal body? Shukadev replied, before creation, Vishnu alone exists, lying in mystic slumber upon the Garbhodak ocean, with his powerful energies held within himself. Desiring to become many, he manifests from his navel his external energy in the form of golden lotus. Listen carefully, for I will now explain how that one energy becomes the three categories. I have already described Adidev, Adhyatma and Adibhut. Adhyatma is the controlled living beings, Adidev is controlling gods, Adibhut is the material bodies. Shukadev explained that from the ether within his own transcendental body, the Lord first manifests bodily, mental and sensual energies along with the total cosmic prana or the universal living force. As a king's subjects follow their king, similarly the bodily, mental and sensual energies of the individual living beings follow the cosmic prana. When the total prana acts, they're active. When it stops, they too cease to function. Prana agitates the embryonic universal form and generates hunger and thirst. Thus the Virat Roop manifests a mouth with which to eat and drink. Following the mouth, the palate is generated, and then the tongue along with the taste it relishes. Varun, the presiding deity of the tongue, also comes into existence. Parikshit said, you were going to explain how Adidev, Adhyatma and Adibhut develop. I can see that Varun is a development of Adidev, and the mouth, palate and tongue are the development of Varun is the development of Adidev, and mouth, palate and tongue are the development of Adibhut. How though has the Adhyatma developed at this stage? Shukadev explained that Garbhodakshai Vishnu, being purely spiritual, does not experience hunger and thirst, nor does he relish material tastes, nor do the transcendental souls for the Virat Roop to experience material sensations such as hunger and thirst. The Lord generates the conditioned natures of living beings, which is called Adhyatma. Parikshit asked for more details about the function of Adidev. Shukadev said, the controlling deities administrate the Lord's rules governing the material sense gratification. If a living being violates those rules, then the gods appropriately award his next body. For example, if in the human body a living being forsakes the diet ordained for him and prefers the taste of flesh, then Varun ensures he gets a mouth and palate suited to meet meat eating in his next life. Shukadev continued, describing how the Virat Roop gradually develops. One after another, the mouth, ears, eyes, nostrils, legs, hands, skins, genital and anus, navel, mind, abdomen, intestines, life breath, blood, fat, marrow, and bones are generated. As each of these bodily parts manifest, so do the corresponding controlling gods along with their planets. Only after the Virat Roop manifests a sense, organ, or function can the individual entities possess that feature. The more Parikshit learned, the clearer it became that we should use our senses in Krishna's service to feel peaceful and happy, since he is the supreme controller of the souls, the gods, and the physical universe. Everyone should act in accord with his will. When we forget this, we become subject to the threefold miseries of material nature. Shukadev explained further about the constitution of the gross material body, which is composed of a physical form and life air. The physical form has 7 layers, a thin covering on the skin that gives rise to touch sensation, the skin itself, flesh, blood, fat, marrow, and bone. These layers are made of earth, water, and fire. The pran or life breath is comprised of ether, water, and air. Parikshit was fascinated. That was why Ayurveda recommended sunshine, fresh air, regular baths, drinking sufficient water, and eating fresh produce from the earth like grains and vegetables. By so doing, we rejuvenate the elements which comprise our body and life air. Still he remained mystified how the eternal spirit souls identified with the material body and became absorbed in material pains and pleasure, like all of us are. Most importantly, he wondered how they could ever become released from this false state of existence. Shukadev said, false ego makes the living beings identify with their material bodies, and the material senses are designed to be irresistibly drawn to the sense objects. The living beings experience pleasure and distress through the mind. The intelligence, however, is the instrument which enables the living beings to deliberate on and improve their situation. My dear King, I have now described the internal composition of one universe as a form of the Lord. The universe is covered by 8 layers of earth, water, fire, air, earth, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All these emanate from Krishna as his external energy. The sage was pensive for a moment. He then said, besides this gross universal form of the Lord, there is another extremely subtle manifestation which is invisible, without qualities or shape, inexplicable and eternal. Both of these forms are material, and thus the pure devotees who know the Lord in truth do not accept either as being equal to his form in Vaikuntha, such as Narayan and Krishna. So we will continue from here onwards with our reading next time. Thank you for joining. Hare Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.